Hello. Odds are you don't know me, but I'm here to talk about a series that's near and dear to me, that being the Tatami Galaxy. The Tatami Galaxy was first published as a campus novel in 2004 written by Tomihiki Morimi, though in this video I will be speaking in regards to the 2010 anime adaptation directed by Masaki Yuasa. This series has remained as a relatively popular but not super mainstream series with a fairly devoted fan base. Some have even gone as far as to argue the series is pretentious, due to it being either considered vague or heavy-handed in its themes for some, but I'm not here to argue about that kind of stuff. This is going to be a personal video in which I'll detail what the series meant to me and how it's impacted me. I've never really done anything like this before, so it'll be a learning process. As part of this learning process, I'm bound to make a few mistakes, so just bear with me for those. I consider the Tatami Galaxy to be a pretty important piece of media to me. It's one of my favorite anime. Maybe if I ever do this again, I'll cover my actual favorite, which would be its own entire can of worms, so I'll leave that for another time. Every time I've watched the Tatami Galaxy, it's given me plenty of new things to think about. I consider it as the sort of series that its meaning to you will be heavily affected based on your own life state, so any rewatches that I do or anyone does really recontextualizes the show. So with all this out of the way, I think we're ready to delve into what the Tatami Galaxy meant to me. So, in a general sense, the primary message that I took from the Tatami Galaxy was something along the lines of, the grass is always greener on the other side, which is a very simplified interpretation of it. That interpretation of it is me eliminating all of the nuance and detail involved and just giving it a clear, pointed definition. This is consistently symbolized in our protagonist Watashi and his constant hopes of a rose-colored campus life. Said rose-colored campus life would be the greener other side for our definition here. Within the series, these hopes of a rose-colored campus life takes us throughout many different timelines in which Watashi is trying to make various decisions to lead him to this idyllic life. This usually occurs in him joining various clubs or societies in hopes that they will lead him to this rose-colored campus life he dreams of. However, as shown, he never really reaches it. The point being that no matter what decisions that he makes, it doesn't take him to this idyllic life, and he'd always consider that there's something better. This isn't presented as a message to not try and reach a better life, but more accept who you are and where you are, and don't go for these unattainable dreams. He spends so much time focused on this concept of a rose-colored campus life that he just doesn't live his current campus life. This dream is unattainable because the rose-colored campus life that he dreams of doesn't actually exist. There's a scene where our protagonist, Watashi, is discussing his current life with Higuchi. In this current timeline where the discussion takes place, Watashi is actually quite successful, and even then, he still feels unsatisfied with his life. Watashi even literally says that he thinks that life could be more rose-colored, more sparkling, which that quote alone is almost the embodiment of the idea that the grass is greener on the other side. However, I think the more powerful segment of this scene is what Higuchi has to say to him afterward. Higuchi really hones in on the idea that Watashi is focused too much on obtaining the unobtainable. That the ambitions and dreams that Watashi is going for aren't ones of reality. He then tells Watashi that he needs to be able to accept that he is the person that he is, and you can't be anyone that isn't you, which I think is a pretty simple message, but it still held quite a punch for me. Higuchi then says that there is no rose-colored campus life because nothing in life is rose-colored. Everything is more a bunch of colors all mixed up together. And I think that statement alone is one that is extremely core to what I gained from the series. I think I may have spent too long trying to search for some rose-colored version of my own life, as opposed to embracing the many colors that life is made up of. Obviously, unlike Tatami Galaxy, I wasn't able to turn back time and live various parallel universes of my life to lead this rose-colored version of it, but that doesn't mean I didn't make various decisions in hopes of reaching this unattainable goal of some perfect life. Like Watashi, I spent more time thinking about how to reach my ideal life than just living my current life. I was so caught up in hypotheticals, the here and now felt so bland. So the message that Higuchi tried to portray to Watashi, it struck a chord with me. I will be circling back to this when I reach the climax of the series, but before we get there, I do need to go and talk about some of the characters and what I think they represent. So, in terms of characters, this is probably where I might get the most grief, because I think my idea of it might be a little out there. And just to be clear, I'm going to be talking about who I consider to be the three main characters of the series, that being Watashi, Azu, and Akashi. Said three characters I almost consider to be, while not just characters, they're actually representatives of concepts. Our protagonist, Watashi, isn't even actually named. Watashi is just the name given to him. This is in part due to the fact that the original novel is actually written in first person, so actions from the protagonist would be I's and me's. But I also consider this to be in part because Watashi is meant to serve as an audience stand-in. That is at least how I chose to view him. I was able to project myself and my own problems in life onto him, and it took some extrapolation, but I think that was the best interpretation I made. When viewing the series with the idea that Watashi serves as an audience stand-in, I was able to have the themes apply to me better in my own life, and they were able to have more impact. Now we'll move on to Azu, and Azu I consider to be a very interesting character. Hopefully I'm pronouncing his name correctly as well. I'm pretty sure it's Azu, but it might be Ozu. I don't entirely know. Anyway, I consider Azu to serve more as a representation of mistakes and misfortunes in life. Watashi consistently frames Azu as a scapegoat for his life and why it isn't his rose-colored campus life. And throughout the series, Azu is portrayed as a devious kind of character, constantly pulling one over on people for his own benefit. He's even described as looking like a yokai, more of a trickster demon than an actual person. However, by the end of the series, it's revealed that's not really what his face looks like. He's a perfectly normal, average person. Even then, throughout the entire series before the climax, Watashi consistently says that had he not met Azu, he would surely be living his rose-colored campus life that he dreams of. Now, with the idea that Azu represents misfortune and mistakes, the viewer can stand in whatever mistakes or downfalls have happened to them in place of Azu as a character. And Azu being revealed as an average person and not a yokai is actually something I believe I can tie in when I reach the climax of the series. So until then, let's go on to Akashi. If Azu represents misfortune and mistakes, Akashi represents opportunities for our viewer. This is something that the series actually tries to drill into your head pretty intensely, with the reoccurring fortune teller character constantly talking about some vague opportunity for Watashi to grab out to. The opportunity that the fortune teller was referring to is starting a relationship with Akashi in the series, but this could be extrapolated onto any opportunities for the viewers. So just to recap, our three main characters are Watashi, which is a viewer stand-in, Azu, which is a representative of misfortune and mistakes, and Akashi, who represents opportunity. And now that I have these three characters established, I can go on to the climax of the series. So for those unaware, what I consider to be the climax of Tatami Galaxy is episodes 10 and 11, where our protagonist Watashi, instead of joining a club or society, decides to live as a shut-in. He decides that the ideal campus life is going to be almost entirely stuck within his 4.5 tatami mat room. While Watashi himself even says that this isn't a rose-colored campus life, he actually finds himself quite satisfied here, and he develops his own systems within his small, snug room. However, Watashi finds himself awoken in a universe now entirely comprised of 4.5 tatami mat rooms. No less, all of these rooms are exact replicas of the room he is living in. Eventually, through enough exploration, Watashi discovers that all these rooms are ever so slightly different, not perfect copies of the same room. What is actually occurring here is Watashi is exploring the many parallel universes that he set up in hopes of searching for his rose-colored campus life, each room representing each timeline, and all of the very slight differences are all based on the different decisions that he made. The Watashi that we see traveling between the parallel universes is one that didn't experience almost anything in his life. So he's learning about his various different lives and is coming to an interesting conclusion. The conclusion that this Watashi reaches is that all of the lives he's led have actually been quite satisfying and fulfilling. He's done a bunch of different things that have all, granted various levels of success, but that's what life is. He realized that in all of these different universes, he was already living the rainbow-colored life. He was just living, which is the most important thing. This realization is obviously very core to the way I interpreted the series, because he was able to accept that while none of his lives were this rose-colored campus life, they were still all unique, fulfilling lives, made up of a bunch of colors. He was able to break free from the grass is greener on the other side mentality in a meta sense. He broke free from it by seeing the other side, or more accurately, the many, many other sides. And while none of them were as maybe green or rose-colored as he was hoping, they were all unique and fulfilling. So now this Prime Watashi is better able to embrace the rainbow that life is. Now, this video is also secretly about me, as well as the Tatami Galaxy, so I'm going to go into some of the personal details here. If Watashi's wake-up call was being stuck in this universe of 4.5 tatami rooms, well then mine was just last year. I was the most stuck I'd ever been searching for my own rose-colored life, and I would just constantly wonder where I went wrong, what decisions I made to lead me to where I was at the time. And it wasn't a very good experience. I was really stuck and it wasn't fun. However, I was able to have my own wake-up call and eventually be able to embrace my own rainbow-colored life. I was now able to live my own life as myself and nobody else. But don't think I'm done with the climax just yet, because it doesn't end there. As anyone who's watched the series knows, Watashi then eventually breaks free from his eternal universe of 4.5 tatami rooms, and he breaks free with more revelations than just accepting the rainbow-colored life. Watashi realizes that there were two primary constants in his life between all of these timelines as well, that being Azu and Akashi. Watashi comes to realize that Azu has really been his truest friend throughout all these timelines, and he's pretty much always been there for him, even if he's a little devious. So it's going to take a bit of a stretch for me to connect that to my previous statement that Azu is a representation of misfortune and mistakes, but hear me out here. I think Watashi accepting Azu as a true friend is like the viewer coming to accept that mistakes are a part of them. Mistakes happen, and everyone knows it, and it's a part of life, which is something to accept and not run away from. The best thing about mistakes is that we can learn from them, so to run away from them or ignore them is missing the point. So while it's a bit of a stretch, that's how Watashi coming to accept Azu as a friend ties into my interpretation of Azu being a representation of mistakes. The realization that Watashi comes to with Akashi is that they've always been connected. And in the purpose of the series, the opportunity that has constantly been hanging over Watashi's head is his connection with Akashi. The grander interpretation of this being that the viewer is now better able to comprehend and reach out for their own opportunities in life. My personal connection to both of these would be, well, I'm no stranger to mistakes, and as of late I've been doing better at learning from them as opposed to trying to ignore them. I'm able to accept that they're a part of me, but they don't define me. And in regards to taking advantage of an opportunity in my life, well, my closest analog would be my recent taking up of photography, which it's really given me a lot of energy, and maybe even video making, who knows? The primary point being now I'm living more as myself, and I'm less avoiding the aspects of my life in hopes of trying to reach some ideal rose-colored life, which, well, is also the primary point of the series, in my opinion. It's all about not going for this unrealistic rose-colored life, but just embracing your own life and who you are. So that was my long-winded discussion about the Tatami Galaxy and what it meant to me. I no doubt missed out on plenty of things that the series may have held for any of you people watching, but that isn't really the point of the video. And it's also what makes interpretation fun. What you may have, found most important from the series was something I never even considered, and that's what makes the discussion worth it. Thank you to anyone who made it all the way through this video. I have no experience in this, and I can probably make an abundance of improvements, but it's my first one, and I just wanted to get it out there in the world. I suppose I should do the general YouTube call to action, so like, comment, subscribe, comment especially. That is the one most interesting to me. I want to see what people have to say. And I guess follow my Twitter. I'll put the link in the description. And finally, I hope any of you watching just embrace your own rainbow-colored life. Don't shoot for some rose-colored idyllic life. Embrace the many colors that comprises your life.